The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Early on in this season here on Locked On Canucks, we dropped the Halfy Hour episode after the Canucks lost 2 straight to Philly and Tampa. Well, guess what? After that, the Canucks went 8-0-1. So after 2 straight losses, we're bringing it back. The Halfy Hour here on Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, Canucks writer for Daily High Vancouver, and also your co-host here on Locked On Canucks. Before we dive into the show, we appreciate the heck out of you for tuning into Locked On Canucks. It's your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you go subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, I said it off the top, okay? Sometimes you need a little optimism in the air. And things have been going right for a while now in Vancouver, but over the last couple of games, things haven't been going so right. So that means it's time for the Halfy Hour.
Peace, love, and happiness.
You guys missed that episode a couple weeks ago. Really, the point of the Halfy Hour is to keep things light, keep things positive when times are a little dark. And you know what? The Canucks, I wouldn't say it's dark, but the Canucks are going through some adversity right now with losses, consecutive losses to the Calgary Flames and the Seattle Kraken. I said it off the top. We ran this the Halfy Hour episode after the Tampa Bay loss, with the Philadelphia loss before that. And guess what? The Canucks went 8-0-1 over the next 5 games, or over the next 9 games. Since then, the Canucks have gone 2-3 with consecutive losses in regulation. Only 1 regulation win. That was against the Canadiens last Sunday. So let's keep it light and positive. But before I do that, I got to introduce my co-host, Kyle. You're here, man. What's going on, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing, I think I'm doing good because I stepped away from anything Canucks yesterday, okay? You know how it is. When you get addicted to the team and things are doing good, you're on YouTube till 1 a.m. watching the highlights 3 times in a row, watching all the press conferences, watching all the interviews, and you sprinkle in a podcast, a post-game show here and there, and, you're fueled up. But I'm not going to say it's been depressing over the last couple of days. It's just been different. All in all, the feeling is back. Well, what's the feeling? Okay, the games matter, so that means the losses matter, okay? 8 months ago, and for the previous handful of years, those losses were just frustrating and just annoying, But they weren't sad. The games didn't matter, and now they matter, and now it's sad. It's sad. All that being said, again, it's the Halfy Hour. We're happy. And I had to take yesterday off from everything Canucks in order to be here today and talk about the positives while also being constructive, because I think if we do both, we're going to find the solution. And the solution is the Canucks are still a great hockey team. I truly do believe so, okay? We'll get to all that. We'll also get to Comment Corner because that's the best part of the show. At the end of the show, somebody was talking about losing their wife, their girlfriend in 94 or in 2011 because of the riot, something. I don't know. We'll get to it again at the end of the show. Anywho, Beggsy, let's be constructive and positive here on the Halfy Hour.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to go ripping the team today because, Talker kind of already did that in his post-game press conferences, said no excuses, and the Seattle Kraken were hungrier. Look, it was not the best hockey we've seen from the Canucks over the past couple of games. That Hughes-Hronek pairing, which was the best defensive pairing in the league throughout the season, has not been so good in the last week. And we'll get to that on the Goats of the Week a little bit more as well in segment 2. But at the end of the day, I mean, every good team's got to go through some adversity, right? And I would much rather the Canucks go through that adversity now than, say, April and May, when your adversity can cost you your season. So, the Canucks obviously weren't going to win, 80-85% of the games the whole way. And I really felt more optimistic after the Calgary game. You lose to Seattle, wasn't a great game. Really wasn't a great game by either team, to be honest with you. I mean, I think as Canuck fans, we're going to focus on the Canucks' mistakes, but Seattle did not play a good game either. Again, it was just kind of capitalizing on maybe one more mistake than the Canucks did. But at the end of the day, I still like a lot of what the Canucks have to offer. And here's one thing to keep it optimistic here, Kyle, here on the Halfy Hour, all Locked On Canucks, 30 minutes or less, your team every day. The Hughes and Hronek pairing, it struggled the past week, but the Canucks had the defenseman actually played pretty good. And again, we'll reflect that on Goats of the Week. But Cole, Myers, Hirose looked not bad in his return to the lineup.
Yeah, and I know Juleson did play on Saturday too, but just in general, I think everyone has kind of risen, and one of those guys is definitely Myers, man. Myers is playing a lot better, and it's obviously a good thing, and I know we're just looking for things, but you have to take that with more than a grain of salt, because weeks ago, we were assuming this guy was out of the league, and now he's looking more than better than an average defenseman, you know, and that's a benefit for the Vancouver Canucks. It just raises the floor of this team when your number 5, number 6 D-man is actually competent, he's actually making plays, and I don't think we're going to see that go away from Tyler Myers. I think this version of Myers, because I think talk has gotten to him, is here to stay, and he has a lot to prove. Again, contract year, which is a good thing for your Vancouver Canucks. He is going to stay this way, and what is that way? It's him being physical, it's him using his stick to his advantage, it's him playing a simpler game, and it's working for the Vancouver Canucks. And it's ironic because he's the tallest guy on the team, but it's the biggest reason why I'm actually optimistic after these 2 losses. Like, our depth players played good. They played good. They played really good. Look at Niels Höglander. He played really, really good. Really good. So, all in all, I'm leaning on that to, again, get some positivity and take it towards this next stretch of Canucks hockey, which is going to come after the first level of adversity for your Vancouver Canucks. And injuries have a lot to do with it too. Injuries have dude, for everything, I think Rutherford said it, right? For everything to go right, like, everyone's got to stay in the lineup, right? And that's been the kind of the opposite over the last handful of days. Speaking of which, Susie out for a long time. We saw Juleson struggle a lot. Another reason why I'm pretty optimistic is because I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it in my bones. I think the Canucks are going to make a trade. I don't think they're going to settle. I don't think they're going to let Hirose and Juleson and Freeman, you know, kind of work this out as being like your super depth defenseman on an everyday situation for your Vancouver Canucks. I think a trade is coming, and that's why I'm a little optimistic too.
But like you mentioned, Kyle, I think in a week where the Canucks stars weren't really, you know, up to snuff, Hughes and Hronek struggled a bit. Pettersson, I still think, is struggling. Like, he, again, really bad line change on that Oleksiak goal on Saturday night. But the depth of guys, like you said, have been playing well. And I mentioned it last week, even last Monday, I think it was, the third line of the Canucks was playing phenomenal. And I know Suter was out this week, but Blueger actually slid in there, and that third line still looks really, really good. Dakota Joshua, no points this week, but he was one of my favorite Canucks, like just chucking the body around. By the way, we talked about the Canucks lacking bite on Friday's episode. Make sure you go check that one out if you haven't already. Okay. Ended the week strong. Let's go. But it's funny because the Canucks, I still think there's something to be said about them not necessarily standing up for each other. But you wake up today and the Canucks are second overall in the NHL in hits, which is kind of fascinating to me. I'm not thinking this is an overly physical team, but I guess it's not really an overly physical NHL anymore, is it?
Dude, you brought it up, man. Again, another player that looks so noticeable in a week that was kind of mediocre. Well, it was mediocre for the Vancouver Canucks. Like, it was Dakota Joshua. He looks strong on the penalty kill too. He looks better. So again, people, calm down. Don't panic. Take the little wins. And for a team that is so star heavy, I think this team still has 3 of the top 3 point getters in the NHL. Again, I didn't watch hockey yesterday. I don't know if that's changed or not. Like, we're suited and booted. Yep. We're good to go. And if you're going to take anything from, again, the losses that we suffered this week, it's that players like Joshua, players like Garland, players like Höglander, players like Lafferty, players like Tyler Myers, Ian Cole played really, really well. And everything else is going to round out. Like, we're going to see better hockey from Pettersson, way better hockey from Hughes. Oh, another guy I want to talk about, too. I know the pairing kind of struggled together, but the more and more I think about it, like, dude, Hronek is just too good, bro. He's too good. I don't care what the underlining numbers say. When I look at him play, I'm very, very confident that this team is going to do things this year because of how confident Filip Hronek is playing on the ice. Now, could that be sometimes mixed in with a little bit of overconfidence? Sure, but that's what you're going to get when you give the power to the player. Look at Quinn Hughes. He's a super confident player, and a big reason why the Canucks lost some games last week is because Quinn Hughes and his turnovers. Like, sometimes that's the give and take. It is what it is. Another guy I want to mention too, and in all this mess, I'm scraping for answers, but I think these are valid. Brock Besser. I think his two-way game, I think him being engaged the whole way through, I feel like he's more enthused. I liked what I saw from Brock Besser. Again, another strong week. One of our better top 6 forwards this week. And I put him right actually below Miller this week. And it's just those things that make me feel as if that, again, when Quinn Hughes and Pettersson, and I'm not going to put Miller on that boat, but I will put Demko on that boat as well. When they kind of get over this rough week that they had, we'll go back to being one of the best teams in hockey ASAP. ASAP.
Yeah, let's go, baby. I'll touch on one of those things quick, and it's Quinn Hughes before we get to go to the week in segment 2. If you were a casual hockey fan, one of those guys who thinks Quinn Hughes only plays offense, can't play defense, and you only watch Saturday night's game against Seattle, you probably think you're onto something, right? Because it was one of those nights where he scores, he's on the score sheet, but had some horrendous turnovers and didn't play his best hockey. But that's okay because, for that casual fans, the East Coast, keep underrating us. Keep underrating the Vancouver Canucks because you know what? This team, I really like what they put together right now. I'm more optimistic about this team than I've been in a long time. So that's okay, those East Coast fans. If you don't want to watch us, don't tune in very often. You know what? Keep underrating us because this team, they got someone to prove this season, man.
Dude, I heard this quote, and it kind of tied into what was giving us so much success prior to last week, okay? And I know we were led by the Stars, so this quote might not make a lot of sense, but I feel as if overall, and I don't have the talk it quote in front of me because, again, I took the day off. I'm really interested in you kind of like reading it out to me because I feel as if it might be in line with the way I'm thinking. But overall, last week, and we kind of saw it also in Ottawa too. It kind of started in Ottawa, okay? I feel as if this team got a little cocky and they took their foot off the pedal and the effort came second. Like they were leaning on their structure, they're leaning on their individual talents, and they're like, you know what, we're going to get the job done. We're the Vancouver Canucks. We're one of those teams. It's like, nah, you guys just started doing this. You guys always have to lead with the effort, okay? That being said, this quote really made me think, and I'm not saying the Canucks are a team that have a lot of selfish players because that's the total opposite of what they have, but for a team to win, the individuals have to lose. So going into this week, I hope that Tocchet was able to deliver a message where he's able to tell the players that, look, I know we have a lot of top-end talent and all these things are working for us and these three at the top of the league in scoring and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, we're pretty much an outlier team. We're stacked, blah, blah, blah. Nah, like, the Canucks have to go back to playing like a team. Everyone has to be engaged, and they got to play a simple game. And if they do all three of those things, the skill, the floor, the optimism will all raise, and we'll be back to, again, being one of the best teams in hockey.
We'll be back to being one of the best teams in hockey, and we'll be back on the other side here with the Canucks Goats of the Week. Before we get to that, I got to tell you, passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts to choose from your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, baby. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Okay, you're back on another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name's Kyle Bhawan. That is Trevor Beggs. And again, this is the Halfy version of this show that gives you your Canucks every day, half an hour of positivity when the team is struggling. Quote unquote struggling, okay? It's only 2 straight regulation losses. We got a little cocky last week too, right? The first one was a scheduled loss, blah, blah, blah. And again, I don't know the sentiment around Vancouver right now or the fan base or just other media personalities talking about it. I don't know if it's super negative right now, but I really hope it isn't. And it's ironic because we mentioned Tyler Myers being a big reason why we shouldn't be super negative. Like, we should be looking at the little things and using that as a bit of leverage to get back to being positive and looking at this team as a threat. And I don't know, I even though that sounds so crazy saying it out loud, I actually am so much more at peace understanding that there's a lot of truth to that. Like, there's a lot of truth to that. Because it hasn't just been oh, he was our best player in Calgary, and he was one of our best players in against Seattle, even though he turned over the puck that led to, I think, the Beniers goal. It's been like a 10-game, 11-game stretch where Tyler Myers has been pretty good. Like, want to use EA Sports terms, 82 overall, 83 overall. And again, Myers is a big reason why your Vancouver Canucks are going to be one of the best teams in hockey. Speaking of Myers, I'm pretty sure, even though me and Beggsy haven't done this yet, haven't talked about it yet, that he's one of your goats of the week. Speaking of which, let's run the segment here on Locked On Canucks.
Well, Kyle, usually when I do goats of the week, I like to start at number 1 and go down to number 5. But because you talked about Tyler Myers, and yeah, you hadn't checked my notes, I know you haven't. I do have Tyler Myers as the 5th player on the Canucks goats of the week list here in the Canucks weekly power rankings. Yeah, you mentioned it. Myers has had a good stretch of hockey here. Arguably his best stretch of hockey as a Vancouver Canuck. But this week he had 3 assists in 3 games. And he was just behind Ian Cole in terms of expected goals for even strength, and expected goals for percentage of 68.7%. Look, that's just not something we've seen for Tyler Myers during his time in Vancouver. This guy has struggled with the puck. And, this week he made mistakes. He wasn't perfect, but on a week where a lot of Canucks weren't perfect, I did have him as my 5th best Canuck of the week. I'm going to go rip off 4 and 3 pretty quickly here because I think 1 and 2 might be a tad surprising, but at number 4, I have Quinn Hughes. Again, wasn't his best week, but it's hard to ignore the offensive production. And look, the 3 games this week were the Islanders game, the Seattle game, and the Flames game. Quinn Hughes had the overtime winner against the New York Islanders. That did happen last week, right? So it's hard to fault Quinn Hughes too much. And both with Hughes at number 4 and Miller at number 3. I think both guys had their struggles this week, but you look at the stat sheet at the end of the week, and both players had 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points in 3 games. So even in a week where, again, defensively they weren't all there, they were still managing to make an impact on the score sheet.
JT Miller has been our best forward from day one. It's just the truth. And, we mentioned how Pettersson's been struggling, maybe the Hughes-Hirona pairing as well. Demko has just been kind of average lately. Well, not lately, but like last week. I don't think I can use the word average when bringing up JT Miller. Now, again, I don't know what the underlying data is showing me, but just with the eye test, that dude is just 24/7 engaged. And again, just learning how to be a two-way centerman, two-way elite centerman, okay? He's still new in that part of his career at 30 years old. So I'm not expecting this guy to be Datsuk, I'm not expecting this guy to be Bergeron. There's going to be mistakes there, but as far as engagement goes and a lack of mistakes, he's leading the way. And after seeing, I feel like we've played, 18 games this season? Is that correct? 18 games, right? That's the math. I feel like I honestly feel like, even though Quinn Hughes is, in my opinion, the MVP of the league right now, he has the puck so much, he's in control so much. It's all good things, but at the same time, when you're that guy who has, again, the puck that much, sometimes you're going to turn over the puck and you're going to make mistakes, right? And he's done that, and I feel like he's cost us at least 2 or 3 games, trying to do too much and a goal's going the other way. I can't say the same about JT Miller. This guy's played pretty mistake-free the whole season.
Yeah, he's even against Seattle on Saturday, he ends up scoring the opening goal for the Canucks. And I don't think Seattle really has a super impactful top line. So yeah, Miller's able to win his possession matchup pretty handedly there. When Miller's on the ice against Seattle, Canucks were controlling shot attempts, controlling possession. So yeah, I completely agree with you, Kyle. I think we'll go to the Canucks yearly power rankings in a second, which isn't a perfect barometer of how the Canucks have played this season, but Miller is the best forward in terms of the yearly power rankings, and he's been the best forward for your Vancouver Canucks. So at numbers 2 and 1 on the list, we have 2 guys. I have the 2 best Canucks of the week, 2 guys who had not been on the weekly power rankings at all this year. Has not even cracked in the top 5. But at number 2, I have Nils Höglander. Okay, I thought he was the most impactful Canuck, at least offensively, on Thursday and on Saturday. Had 2 goals in 3 games. Not a lot of mistakes when he's out there. And I thought against both the Flames and the Kraken, he could have had more than 1 goal in each of those games. He had his looks, he had his chances. He's really making things happen despite still playing really a 4th line role in this team. I like to see the Canucks get Nils Höglander some more minutes, maybe even some power play time as well. Because this guy's earning it right now, and maybe that's going too far because maybe he's a 4th liner in a good team, and that's all he is. But really like what Nils Höglander's brought to the table for the Canucks. Not even just last week, but really so far this season.
No, he's been. I don't know what's like the duller way to say electric, because it's kind of hard to give a fourth line player that title. But dude, every time he has the puck on his stick, dude, he's taking it to the net, or he's taking it along the boards and getting into the zone. Dude, I have no doubt in my mind saying that this guy, out of any player that came into this season from last season, got faster. And he's made the biggest improvement in speed and agility in his game. And that's not surprising, because one of the players that Tocchet did call out in a good way during training camp was Niels Höglander and his shape and his fitness, So he's been so good that I know maybe they're trying to teach him a lesson, and they're trying to, I don't know anything about developing hockey players, right? But he's been so good on a team that desperately needs to win games. You can't take this guy out of the lineup. You cannot take this guy out of the lineup in front of Beauvillier. You just can't. Even though, again, I've said this on the last 2 episodes, but it's got to stop, because you need to ice your best lineup. Even though you have to prop up Beauvillier, raise his trade value, potentially trade him for a quote-unquote defenseman, top 4, top 5 D-man, help the Susie situation out, you can't do that and sacrifice a good Niels Höglander from playing games. He's just been, in my opinion, on the bottom 6, an X factor 80% of the time he's on the ice.
Yeah, you just look at the Canucks right now in terms of even strength goals this season. Ilya Mikheyev has the most even strength goals in the Canucks with 6. And then 3 players are tied with 5 goals. It's Brock Besser, Quinn Hughes, and Niels Höglander.
Yeah.
Keep Niels in the lineup. Know that this guy isn't going anywhere in the lineup either. My number 1 GOAT of the week for your Vancouver Canucks, Ian Cole. Okay, no points this week, but just so impactful defensively. I think there was a moment probably I could have picked one in each of the 3 games this week where this guy's getting his stick on a cross-ice pass, breaking up a sweet scoring chance. And yeah, in a week where the Canucks, lost 2 or 3 games, didn't win any games in regulation, Ian Cole finished with a 70% expected goals for total, was solid on the penalty kill. And, it doesn't matter where Cole has played this season, who's been his partner, except for maybe a little early season Tyler Myers, and they were figuring things out. I thought Ian Cole had another stellar week for the Vancouver Canucks. And again, one of those guys who, because of his point totals and the role he plays, isn't going to get a ton of love, but he deserves some love because he has been one of the best Canucks this season. And the other thing about Ian Cole is I do think he is a calming voice in the locker room. Maybe calming is not the right word, but he's definitely a leader. And he talked about it post-game, how, being fatigued isn't an excuse. The Canucks, again, are in the meat grind right now. 7 games in 11 days. It's a tough stretch. He talked about how fatigue's not an excuse. You got to find ways to be smarter with the puck.
Ooh. No, that's the truth, though. That's the truth, though, man. Like, be smarter. All in all, like, me and Trevor are trying to decipher or, like, have this conversation on the fly about being positive at the Vancouver Canucks. And it really comes down to 2 things for me. And I think they can fix this issue, because the guys making the mistakes are guys that don't really make a lot of mistakes. Like Quinn Hughes, that's going to stop. That's going to stop. And that's 1 less goal against, Because the Canucks they're not playing horrible. They're not playing horrible at all. But anytime they make a mistake, it's burning them. It's burning them ASAP. And once that stops, they're not going to get burned as much. And the other thing is what Tocchet called them out on, and that's hunger. And when the effort raises, whether it comes through Tocchet's words or Ian Cole's been a winner, like he can kind of like convey that message to the people in that room and be like, yo, I get that we're stacked and we got like this top heavy team and all these guys are working out for us when it comes to them proving it to the rest of the league based on stats and metrics and all blah, blah, blah. But if we don't try in games 100% of the time, there's a good chance we're going to lose. And that's not just basic rocket science for any NHL team. That's the case with the Vancouver Canucks, because the Vancouver Canucks, they just started doing this. They're the last winning team to take any other route to, again, winning games other than trying hard in games. And once they take their foot off the pedal just a bit, and it started in Ottawa, look at the stats, right? They get a little cocky. They think they can win games by just making plays and doing their thing. It's like, nah, win games by playing hard. Because recently, y'all been playing soft and getting away with it, in times, right? Beating Montreal, beating Ottawa, beating the Islanders. But it's not gonna, like, I think you brought it up during a text message, like, the luck is gonna, it's gonna run out. The luck is gonna run out. You're not gonna get bailed out by Demko every time you just turn over the puck, or you're not hard on forechecks, all that jazz.
Yeah, and we saw that this week, right? I mean, wasn't like Demko and DeSmith had horrible games, but they did not bail the team out on Thursday or Saturday when the Canucks were not the better team. But that's okay. Better days are ahead for the Vancouver Canucks. This team is still 12-5-1, second in the Pacific Division. Hell, they're second overall in the Western Conference right now. So let's not freak out. But like you said, Kyle, Canucks got to play hard. In the final segment, we're going to get to Comment Corner and talk about one fan who is dying for a return to another Stanley Cup playoff run. Before we do that, I gotta let you know that a new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Phil DiGiuseppe could score 50 goals, the Canucks could hoist the Stanley Cup, and you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network. Sleeper is my number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey. Because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like JT Miller, Brock Besser, or Ian Cole will record more or less of their projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Canucks fans. You can win 100 times your money by playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability.
Okay, you're back on another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Kyle Bhawan. That right there is Trevor Beggs, and this is the show that gives you your Canucks every day. For real, every day. I'm trying to get back on the weekends too, okay? Like I said, I took a little break from the Canucks via Saturday and via Sunday, okay? Getting a little emotional when it comes to the wins and losses of this team, and it's okay. I'm a fan. It is what it is, but I had to deal with a lot of stuff yesterday, and I had to take a little break. This all being said, again, this is the show that gives you your Canucks every day. Now, Trevor, before I ask you the most important question in the world, I do want to say something about Noah Juulsen, okay? Because he's been getting dragged on this show, rightfully so. And I'm saying rightfully so because you brought up the microstats, and you compared him to a defenseman for the San Jose Sharks. That's what the stats are telling you. This all being said, okay, there was a moment in that game against the Seattle Kraken where, again, it happened. And I wasn't too happy with the outcome, even though it almost happened, the thing that I want to happen. And that's Elias Pettersson getting destroyed. And Noah Juulsen, he was going to do something about it. He made the first step, but at the end of the day, not enough was done. It wasn't done. And I think in moments where the Canucks don't have their feet, like, we're talking about the Halfy Hour and how this is, the next stretch of games, the Canucks got this. Don't worry. They're going to fix these issues, blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to the playoffs or when games really start mattering, that can't happen. Where, like, the bare minimum is only happening when your stars get targeted. And in games where you don't have your feet, where you don't have the energy, where you don't have the hunger, dude, this is ice hockey. This is hockey. This is the NHL. If you stand up for one of your stars and make it clear to the rest of the league that, you can't be doing that, you don't think the fans, you don't think the team is going to feed off of that and maybe find this extra bit of juice that they don't have? It's going to happen. So this is the message to Canucks players. Stop letting that happen. And stop doing the least when Pettersson, Miller, or Hughes get destroyed.
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, it goes back to Friday's episode about lacking bite. Sure, the Canucks might be second overall in the NHL in hits, but in those moments when the best players are being targeted, how do you respond in those moments? And I think there's still a little bit something to be determined there. But hey, this is November, okay? Let's November.
I know.
Canucks are there. They're just amping up for their Stanley Cup run, okay? And speaking of Stanley Cup runs, I know that's what you listening right now is what you want to see it. And one of our fans, he really wants to see it. So we're going to touch on that now here in Comment Corner.
Welcome to Comment Corner, powered by Paraphrasing.
This comment comes from Todd.
As much as it hurts to lose, it feels great to feel like we have a chance again. Speaking of which, I lost my wife in 94 cause I cared too much about the Canucks. Safe to say that was the best time of my life, and now at 56, I want to feel it in my bones again.
Okay, you heard it, Canucks fans. It was 30 years ago almost now that the Canucks went to the 1994 Stanley Cup Finals. And yeah, 2011 happened. That was more the time for Kyle and I to celebrate as fans. We weren't pooping our pants anymore in 2011 like we were in 1994. But this fan, he's still thinking about memories from that 1994 run and how he had the time of his life before being a 30-year-old guy. And now this guy's 57 and again, dying for that same feeling. So the Vancouver Canucks, again, it's a couple game stretch where they haven't played their best, but, I think they got their eyes on the prize. I would say that the time is now for this Canucks team. I think their Stanley Cup window is opening. I don't want to say they're contenders, but their Stanley Cup window is opening right now with the core that they have in place. So I just want to see this Canucks team go on a run, make some noise. I think they got the fire to make it happen, and I think they're only going to get better as the season goes on here. Again, there's going to be some ups and downs, but there's a lot to like about this core right now. And you see, even in a last little stretch when they haven't been playing at their best, they still managed to, come out with a 12-5-1 record. So let's go. Come on, Canucks.
Yeah, and I think it has a lot to do with the question that I want to ask you. Every episode I do ask Trevor, how you doing, how you doing, how you doing? But in this case, I kind of want to put a bit of a thesis or a theory behind the question, and it's revolving around your relationship with the Vancouver Canucks, because it's been a long time. Me and Trevor in our 20s didn't watch any meaningful hockey, okay? The Canucks weren't meaningful. They weren't giving us that feeling in their stomach. And this is like the first bit of adversity this good team has faced. And for me personally, again, it was hard to do anything Canuck related yesterday. It was hard. I don't want to watch no highlights. I didn't want to watch no feedback. I didn't want to watch any other opinions or listen to any opinions about this team that's now lost 2 straight regulation games, 3 of their last 5, blah, 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 because I was getting emotional about it. Are you feeling the same way? Because I'm sensitive. I guess I'm still a little insecure when it comes to losses involving my favorite teams, but you're like a media member too. Do you feel that way, or are you able to like block it out and just move forward without being so sensitive to what other people are saying about your team that, again, has lost 3 of 5 games?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I think I've become accustomed to just analyzing the game itself and not worrying too much about the wins and losses since not even being a media member, but just, it was kind of my mentality writing about the Canucks. I mean, look, I started writing about this team during the Torts here, and I think that was an easier to be irrational about this team, along with a lot of years after that. But I think, again, through so much bad Canucks hockey, I became accustomed to, okay, like, let's not worry too much about the wins and losses, but how did the team play? Which individual players stood out? Which individual players did not stand out? Who stood out on the opposition? Like, so I do look at the game a little differently than I did kind of before I started writing about the Canucks. So I guess that's a long way of answering your question. And I guess I would say I can block it out. That being said, I'm still a Canucks fan. I get juiced when this team wins, and when this team loses, I instead of getting emotional, I kind of go like, okay, who played well, who didn't, and what's going on with the opposition.
And I just get sad. That being said, though, taking a step away from it yesterday and just trying to be rational about how this team can ultimately find a solution to get back on track, and coming up with ideas and opinions about like Tyler Myers and Ian Cole and Filip Hronek and Brock Besser. I just feel like the floor of this team behind the big three, right? Hughes, Pettersson, Miller, if you want to call it the big 4, Demko, like behind those guys, I feel as if the floor has risen, and it's because of those individual players that we mentioned having just overall good games individually. And that's a real positive sign for this team that has lost 3 of 5. We'll talk more about all things Canucks again throughout the week, because it is your show. I mean, your Canucks every day given on this show. And we play San Jose tonight. We didn't mention that once. Please don't lose to San Jose. If they don't lose to San Jose, you're not seeing me tomorrow, man. I'm getting drunk tonight. Anyways, Beggsy, sign us out.
Yeah, we'll have you covered with every Canucks game this week. Again, San Jose on Monday, Colorado on Wednesday, I believe. And then, we got all the games this week. I don't have the schedule in front of me. They play Seattle again at some point, and then they play San Jose again as well. But we got to get out of here. Shout out to the everydayers, the occasional listeners, the first-time listeners, and those new subscribers. Baby, we've almost gained 1,000 subscribers, Kyle, since we took over this channel in March. We love each and every one of you, your family, and your dogs, too. But for now, we got to get out of here. So I'm Trevor Beggs. That guy's Kyle Bhawan, and you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.